Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1419, and I'm Mike Matthews, broadcasting from Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont. Today, we're going to hear some interesting things. And, oh good, I'm recording. That's good. That's an important thing when you're doing a podcast, that you're actually recording. Today, we will get to the segment called Mike's Scavenger Hunt.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
As we scavenge the internet for news stories that we find interesting on today.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's a Thursday, and today the disgruntled fiddle player, the brewmaster, and Benita. And you know what? Something that I find really neat is when I start my podcast, I look in my notes section, cause I write a bunch of stuff. Say it with inflection. Okay. Hey.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Meal kits. Meal kits. What's that all about? People don't know how to cook anymore, I guess.
Mike's
So they get these meal kits.
Daily
So Blue Apron came out.
Podcast.
And this was supposed to be the big thing, right?
Yeah.
And then Amazon killed it. And that whole expression, getting Amazon, happened. Well, Blue Apron and meal kits in general, I don't understand. But Mike, you're not a parent with a bunch of kids and you have a busy lifestyle, blah, 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 blah. My friend, if you don't cook for yourself, you don't understand the nature of food. Look who just walked in. And how it exists in your life. You need to get that. Now, I'm not the fittest guy on the planet Earth, but I know that, like, if I pick up a bag of something with a bunch of processed crap in it, like chips or fiddle faddle or crackers or whatever. Yeah, fiddle faddle. I said fiddle faddle on the show. Look who else walked in. That fiddle faddle, it's going to be all fiddle faddled up, your system. You got to go for, like, the stuff that comes off of trees and gets killed in a farm and processed. Well, you shouldn't eat a lot of meat. I know. That's scary. You should eat a lot of fish, although my friend Robert would argue with me because he's almost got poisoned. He did get poisoned with mercury poisoning because he ate too much fish. But he kind of goes overboard with everything in life. Did I say that out loud? Yeah. Does he listen to this show? No, so I don't care. Hey, a couple people walked in. Hi, Mark. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How you doing?
And it's a disgruntled fiddle player.
And here's today's podcast picture.
It's a disgruntled fiddle player, tell you what.
What?
You know what?
You look like a succulent baby lamb.
What? Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, this guy thought you looked like a succulent baby lamb. Where's Nilly today? Mark, she's right here. Hi, Nelly. Such a wonderful horse.
No way.
The podcast picture today is of this other guy that walked in.
Hello, Mike. I make the delicious root beer. I'm the brewmaster. Oh, boy, have some root beer.
Yeah, okay, so I already know what I'm going to do in the drawing of the brewmaster today. The brewmaster has joined a band, a tribute band to Blue Oyster Cult, only it's called Brewmaster Cult. God, that's low. Why is that sound effect so low? I work with all these people that are like, oh, when you record a sound effect, you gotta have it really loud. Because if it's loud, then people don't hear it. What? No. If it's too loud, it's going to Say what? It's going to be too loud and then it'll distort. That was a nerd man that I just created. What do you think? Thank you. New character. Nerd man. He actually sounded like Nern from the planet Nern, but that alien that I sometimes do on my show will not appear on today's show. For Nern has not traveled through the planets to get... Whatever. The point is, the brewmaster makes root beer, and now he's going to be on a... And you know what the song is that's really popular that's in your band? Brewmaster Cult? Brewmaster?
What?
Don't fear the root beer. Oh, see, now that one's louder. I like that one.
Busted eardrum.
Sorry. MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com to hear all the past shows. MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com is also where you can help out the show through the Amazon link. Click on that Amazon link, buy whatever it is you're going to buy, and you know what? Maybe let's say you're going to buy a meal service. Buy a...
Very funny.
Meal service. If you're going to do that, you're going to go through the link at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com and buy that. I'd buy that for $1. And maybe that sound effect will happen right now.
I'd buy that for $1.
I don't know if you could hear it. It was recorded really low. All I want is sharks with lasers.
Sharks with laser beams attached to their heads.
That's all I want. But MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com is where you can find also the past shows, and you can help out the show through the PayPal. We're very happy if you, and delighted if you do that as well at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Okay, let's get to this segment called Mike's Scavenger Hunt.
Mike's Scavenger Hunt.
Burger Master.
Is that why you're bald, Mike?
We are looking for... By the way, this segment is the oldest segment. I started this segment when I first started Mike's Daily Podcast back in 2011. I had a friend back then, I'm not friends with her now for various reasons, who told me, Mike, you should do a segment called Mike's Scavenger Hunt. And, you know, when you visit places around the world, you can, like, say, oh, guess where this is, and blah, blah. And it was a horrible idea. But I like the name, Mike's Scavenger Hunt, and I have used it now to talk about news that I'm scavenging the internet for. And this one is interesting about President Donald Trump's turnaround. You've heard all about it. If you've listened to any sort of political show, it's just shocking how Trump was all prepared with his comments on Monday, and then suddenly, with the impromptu news conference on Tuesday, just let loose the real Trump, which to all the Trump non-fans, they were like, yeah, and what? And what? Huh? So you didn't notice this before? This is how he really is. Well, it's rocked his administration at any rate, leading to rising speculation that some top officials may be looking for a way out. A parade of business executives broke ties with Trump yesterday, and now frustrated aides could be next. Trump's remarks have left some wondering if sticking by the president comes at too high a cost to their reputations. One senior official who's contemplating whether to resign said to Time magazine, quote, a lot of us joined this administration thinking we could bring to it the experience and expertise that the president didn't have an opportunity to gain in his business career, and to encourage some restraint in what he says publicly and to our allies. Pfft, good luck with that. After yesterday, they said, it's clear that there is no way for anyone, even a Marine general, to restrain his impulses or counter what he sees on TV and reads on the web. And, you know, they were thinking General John Kelly would be able to do it. But as I mentioned on the last show, that didn't turn out so well at the impromptu press conference, where he stood with his eyes fixed to the floor as Trump veered off script, saying, hey, both sides do it. City officials across the country are nervously trying to figure out how to avoid becoming the next Charlottesville, as alt-right leaders and white nationalist groups vow to stage more rallies in coming days. Who's the white supremacist that, when I hear talk, sounds to me like Howard Stern? And, you know, Howard Stern did not support Trump. He told Trump as much. He said, I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to support you. But there's a guy that talks like this. He's got this total radio voice all the time. I hate him. White supremacist guy. That I heard on Michael Medved's show, actually. Michael Medved, by the way, very angry. The conservative talk show host. He is really angry at Trump for the way he acted at that news conference. And he takes these calls from, because he's a conservative, quote-unquote conservative talk show host. So all the total Trump fans are calling him up going, you can't say that about Trump. It's the media's fault. The media's doing everything to make him mad.
Wrong.
Media. A group claiming it is advocating free speech has planned a rally for Saturday on the historic Boston Common, with a group advocating racial justice planning its own gathering in opposition. Boston officials said they have laid down strict conditions, including no sticks, weapons, or backpacks. Mayor Marty Walsh, who is a Democrat, said, quote, "Make no mistake, we do not welcome any hate groups to Boston, and we reject their message." A rally scheduled for August 26th. This is in San Francisco. When is August 26th? That is a week from this Saturday. Yeah, may not be the best time to go to San Francisco that weekend. Has prompted Nancy Pelosi and several California lawmakers to urge the National Park Service to rescind the permit to gather on federal park land there. Cities are also grappling with what to do about the Confederate monuments, an issue that has suddenly become much more urgent. Some are taking preemptive measures under the cover of night. 4 Confederate monuments in Baltimore were hauled away in the early morning darkness, and one in Birmingham, Alabama, was covered in plywood. Wow, I didn't hear about that one yet, but I heard about the Baltimore one. They hauled it away so quick. There was a guy walking his dog around that time, and he said, I never seen the city workers move that fast. They were like in a hurry. So let's move on to what... This is an article in Business Insider. Here's what Robert E. Lee thought about Confederate monuments. Business Insider says, it's probably best to remember one relevant historical fact. Robert E. Lee was opposed to Confederate monuments. Jonathan Horn, a Lee biographer, said, it's often forgotten that Lee himself, after the Civil War, opposed monuments, specifically Confederate war monuments. After the Civil War, Lee received a number of letters requesting support for the erection of Confederate monuments. In June of 1866, he wrote that he could not support a monument of one of his best generals, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, saying, quote, it wasn't feasible at this time. As regards the erection of such monuments as is contemplated, he wrote in 1866, after another Confederate monument proposal, my conviction is that however grateful it would be to the feeling of the South, the attempt in the present condition of the country would have the effect of retarding instead of accelerating its accomplishment, and of continuing, if not adding to, the difficulties under which the Southern people labor. Isn't that fascinating? And he was not only opposed to Confederate memorials, he favored erasing battlefields from the landscape. Wow. Say that in the South. No way. Battlefields are extremely important to... When I lived in the South, there was like, everywhere you went, there was a plaque saying, this battle happened here, this battle happened there. And so he even supported getting rid of the Confederate flag after the Civil War and didn't want them flying above Washington College, which he was a president of after the war. And he did not want such divisive symbols following him to the grave. At his funeral in 1870, flags were notably absent from the procession. Former Confederate soldiers marching did not don their old military uniforms, and neither did the body they buried. Well, on to a different topic. Let's talk about flight safety, shall we? You know what? That seat you're sitting on can be used as a flotation device should we land in water. But a Delta flight came in contact with an American Airlines aircraft on the runway at JFK Airport Tuesday, actually, in New York. Both airlines confirmed this to CBS News. The wing on a Delta flight came in contact with the tail of an American Airlines flight. According to audio from the cockpit, the Delta aircraft is instructed to move. The American captain described the collision as a big jolt. The Delta flight returned to the gate and the passengers deplaned normally. Delta said the passengers aboard the American Airlines flight were transferred to a different aircraft, which eventually departed for Dublin. America's maintenance team is evaluating the damage to the Boeing 757, which was damaged. And Mark Zuckerberg finally says Facebook is taking down posts and watching the situation closely in Charlottesville. I love it when they say, we're watching the situation. We're monitoring the situation. Yeah, right. They're just saying they're doing something when they're doing nothing. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has weighed in on the violent protest The last few days, he wrote, has been hard to process. I know a lot of us have been asking where this hate comes from. As a Jew, it's something I've wondered much of my life. It's a disgrace that we still need to say that neo-Nazis and white supremacists are wrong, as if this is somehow not obvious. He added, there will always be evil in the world, but he wants to create more balance, nuance, and depth in our public discourse. Presumably through Facebook, the company's trying to do some of that already by altering the kinds of stories it shows users in the news feed. It's also saying that Facebook has always taken down any post that promotes or celebrates hate acts or acts of terrorism. Over the weekend, Facebook removed an event page for the Unite the Right rally, but not until the page had been up for weeks. The social network has also been proactively removing links to a hate post from a neo-Nazi website called The Daily Stormer, which glorified the killing of Heather Heyer. She was the one who was killed, and when an anti-Nazi protester, when a Nazi person rammed a car into a group of participants. This sentence that I was reading was not written very well, as you could have heard probably from just then. But at any rate, by the way, the Heather Heyer memorial and funeral was held yesterday, and there was some really beautiful speeches that came from that. And they were showing it on C-SPAN all morning. It was, very sad. So that's what's going on with Facebook as we go outside a cafe anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley. That's what's going on in the world. We yearn for brighter days, don't we? Certainly. And we yearn for, well, I guess for a great cover band of Blue Oyster Cult, basically. And for a delicious meal kit to be served to me right now. But next show, we will have Madame Rutabaga Valentino and Bison Bentley.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKES-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!